Let's maul in the Central Committee. Let's cringe in the Central Committee. Let's bog in the Central Committee right now.
All right, chat. What do you say to a little bit of Majority Report debating men's rights activists with Sam Seder? What do you guys think about the Sam Seder men's rights activist debate as a nice piece of candy? Why can't we have candy once in a while? Huh? Why can't we have a nice thick piece of candy?
I've been watching some of your episodes recently, and some of your...
Oh, I gotta stop it already! Why does every single men's rights activist sound like this? Why does every single men's rights activist sound like this?
Viewers have advised me to call in. I am a men's rights activist.
You're a men's rights
I'm
activist?
Moderator of several men's rights groups.
Okay.
And
I promise I won't pause it this much, but just the reaction from the women on the panel.
And some of your viewers have advised me to call in. I am a men's rights activist.
You're a men's rights
I'm
activist?
Moderator of several men's rights groups.
Okay.
And I feel like the men's rights movement is very much misunderstood.
Misunderstood.
I've called in C-SPAN before. I've written articles before.
Okay.
And it's a fun hour, so let's just talk.
Okay.
Look at Emma.
So,
Emma is...
what would your...
I love the reactions. Emma is pumped, and Nomiki is just looking at her phone. I love this shit.
perception, if someone told you they were a men's rights activist, what would your perception be? Like, how would you see that first gut reaction?
My first gut reaction? Do you want me to be totally honest?
Of course.
I think you're a lunatic.
Okay, you say lunatic.
Yeah, I mean you asked me to be honest, and I wasn't gonna disrespect.
I would say incel or divorced dad. I would say incel or divorced dad. I'm not insulting anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's what would pop to my mind. If someone goes to me, I'm a men's rights activist, I think, okay, divorced dad who doesn't know how to get back in the dating game and was a terrible partner, or outright incel.
Back to you by not being honest. So that was my first thought. Was like,
I would ask for nothing less than the truth, and that's absolutely fine. I get that reaction all the time, and I understand why that's your reaction.
All right.
I see all these articles that are equating the men's rights movement to like the alt-right, to like incels, to misogynists, and what I'm trying to get across is that that is not what the men's rights movement is actually about. And
well, why don't you tell us what the men's rights movement is actually about?
Okay. I would say there are both legal and social disparities that affect men and boys around the world. So both instances of legal discrimination that hurt men and boys, and different social standards and double standards that affect men and boys. And we would like to bring attention to these disparities.
Now, there is a movement, chat, that talks about gender roles and how they're oppressive. Do you know what that movement is called? Do you guys know what the movement that opposes fixed gender roles and the oppression that's associated with that? It's a feminism. Good job, chat. You got it. Literally feminism. So why would you now? This is because patriarchy, which is what the system of the gender roles that we live in, that's oppressive towards women, also includes elements that are oppressive and toxic to men. Not being allowed to show emotion, disposability of male lives, especially lower status men, things like the military draft only affecting men. These are all examples of the oppression of gender roles that affects men. Now, just because there are negative attributes to our oppressive system that affect men doesn't mean that the system is biased against men. It's biased in favor of men. These are just some elements that harm men more generally. So if you want to see gender liberation, that includes liberating yourself from gender norms that you don't adhere to, feminism is the movement you're looking for. You have to empower women and help empower the abolition of gender norms and expectations more broadly to liberate men. You can't do men's rights without women's rights.
Discriminations, both legislatively to fix the laws and make them equal, and socially
Toxic
to get people to
masculinity,
start talking
exactly.
about it. Hey, you know what? I've noticed this is true. This is a double standard that affects men.
Right.
How come when a guy gets to call his girlfriend, people think it's funny, etc.?
Okay, now let me ask you this, because I'm sure you have a long litany of legal disparities that you're aware of, and of social slights, like how come people think it's funny when a guy gets dumped by his girlfriend, but not when a girlfriend gets dumped by his guy? I mean, like I don't know how to measure that.
Hit.
Oh, no. Hit. Yeah. I was referring to
Okay.
domestic violence.
Oh, hit. Okay.
I will say for the record, I do not think either is funny.
Okay, but fair enough. Let me just stipulate some of those things without even hearing them. What, at the end of the day, is the net implications of this?
I think, and this has been backed by studies of human psychology, there is a tendency, a subconscious tendency, to show less empathy towards a male than a female. And they demonstrated this with a study where they offered participants money to give electric shocks.
Thank
to
you,
a
Shane,
random
for the
stranger.
tier 1.
And the shocks would increase in pain with each time. Now, of course, they weren't real shocks, and they were just told that. But people were more willing to hurt a man than a woman. Both men and women were both more willing to hurt a man than a woman. And I think people have a blind spot when it comes to male issues because the narrative is...
Okay. Oh my God, that stupid experiment. Holy fucking hell. People were overwhelmingly willing to hurt men or women because of the direction from the authority figure. Not, and yes, more people were able to empathize with a woman's pain. That's true. But it was marginal compared to the larger situation, which was people following authority to commit violence against an innocent person.
that men are privileged.
But this is not now when you talk about the psychology of people having less empathy for men, and I can that doesn't. I mean, I haven't seen those studies, but that doesn't seem completely. It's not hard for me to imagine. What does that have to do with rights?
Well, for example, in a lot of countries, the state pension age is higher for men than for women.
Is that in this? It's not in this country.
No, in this country we have.
Well, let's just keep it. Let's just keep it within the United States because I don't know. I also know. I mean, can we agree that there's also probably more countries around the world that are not the United States where women have far less rights than men? That even if you can find countries where the pension age,
I would absolutely agree.
Okay, so let's just keep it. Hold on, can you let me finish? Excuse me. You got your own YouTube show, right?
I do.
Okay, so if you want to throw out random stuff like this, you can do that on your show. But I just want to ask. I want to try and just sort of like, because I am quite sure, although I cannot list it, and I want to be clear on that if we were to survey the laws around the world, that women have far less rights around the world as a net than men. And if you have to go to the pension age for men as like if that's your top line, I feel very confident in saying that.
Well, no, first of all,
because we have a lot of.
Okay, first of all, he is cherry picking, and the reason why that might be is actually part of why patriarchy and oppression of women exists. If women are not allowed to work in the workforce, or women have a much shorter history of being, for example, like the women's lib movement was in the 60s and 70s, chat. The second wave feminism that actually got women into the workplace was the 60s and 70s. Many of these women are barely retiring now. Like, what the fuck is he like, what are you talking about, bro? You're talking about pensions, and women haven't been in the workplace at the same level for like a single generation or two. What the hell are you talking about?
Countries where women can't even drive.
It's because women live longer. That's why the pension age, right?
But put that aside for a moment.
Hang on.
Can we just stay?
Okay, that's.
Can we just stay in the United States so that we can have this conversation?
I want to ask what Emma just said. Emma just said it's because women live longer. Now, I don't think that pension ages should be different based on gender. But if anything, if one was to make a logical argument based on how
Correct. The pension age would be shorter. Okay, lower. Now listen to me. Listen, dude. No, you hang on. I don't want to talk about the pension age in some random country somewhere else. I want you to explain to me how. Listen, stop talking for a second and let me finish. I want to talk about what rights have to do with the fact that there's a psychological study that show that people are less empathetic to men. What rights do you think that men are denied, and what material difference do you think that that lack of empathy provides in the United States that allows me to believe that my energy should go into making sure that men have equal rights as opposed to the people who have, you know, only recently had the right to have a credit card in their name, or only recently had the right to vote, et cetera, et cetera?
Exactly. Sam is exactly
right.
In
the United States, exclusively.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's stay with the U.S. And first of all, I know what you're saying about women not having a credit card until 1973, but at the same time, 18, 19, 20-year-old boys in 1973 and before were being drafted to die in Vietnam.
Right, and I think you'll find that people advocated for...
Let's say to today. In the U.S. today, for example, Obamacare allows for an annual women's wellness visit, which is an annual physical for general health. Men...
Oh, my God, thank God.
Men pay for insurance for Obamacare. They do not get the same health care under Obamacare that women will get. Prostate cancer screening is also not covered under Obamacare. Prostate cancer is the cancer a non-smoking man is most likely to die from. The only cancer that kills more men than prostate cancer.
Dude, when do you get it? When do you get prostate cancer?
I'm sorry?
When do you get prostate cancer? What is the age in which you need to worry about prostate cancer?
More men die of prostate cancer.
I understand. What is the age? What is the age?
What is the age I will get prostate cancer?
What is the age when men contract prostate cancer?
It is the cancer that...
No, I didn't ask you what the age is. I didn't ask you what the cancer is. I know what prostate cancer is. I'm asking you, at what age do you think you're most vulnerable that you really need the screening?
I think it's 60.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Medicare?
Yes.
Okay. Obamacare, the ACA, deals with people who get up to the age of Medicare.
But not everybody is over the age of 60 when they get prostate cancer.
No, I understand that, but you also don't. You're not getting mammograms if you're a 25-year-old woman on Obamacare.
But a 25 woman can get breast cancer and die.
It's not about breast cancer. Women.
Well, okay. This is a question of like, when is it appropriate to get screenings? Because screenings cost resources, and they also expose you to things like radiation, right? It's actually probably more harmful for a 25-year-old woman to get a mammogram than not, due to the radiation dose. So we try to figure out what is the optimal age for discovery of cancers versus the harm that's associated with the screenings. So that is something, so like this has actually been studied, and so medical science figures this shit out. Mammograms optimal age to start. The U.S. Preventative Services Task Force mammogram guidelines recommend women begin screening at age 50. And the American Cancer Society recommends women begin screening at age 45. The balancing of the benefits of screening with the limitations and risks is a key part of deciding when to begin mammograms and how often to repeat them. The study suggested that some women with early breast cancer were diagnosed with cancer that may have never affected their health. Fortunately, doctors can't distinguish between breast cancers that may spread beyond the breast and those that will remain confined to the breast. So annual mammograms remain the best option for detecting cancer early and reducing the risk of death from breast cancer. So there's all sorts of like, they make these guidelines and they make these screens, but to understand that they try to balance between when it is age appropriate versus the risks versus all this other stuff. This is difficult. And when you approach it through a gender lens of like men are oppressed because we don't do enough to solve breast cancer or prostate cancer. Look how much they're doing for breast cancer. Well, part of that reason is the prostate's inside your body. and it's difficult to access unless you're an expert, which I'm sure there's many prostate access experts in chat right now, right? Breast examinations are a lot easier, and it's more readily apparent when there is a lump or an anomaly in a breast than it is in your prostate. So that's part of the reason why prostate cancer, if you don't screen for it, can spread much longer than breast cancer. Now, it doesn't mean that breast cancer isn't a serious problem. It is a serious problem. But you can't compare two diseases as perfectly equivalent when they're not, when they're in different parts of the body, in different systems of the body. He's doing it because the prostate is an organ that men have, and breasts are something that women are associated with having elevated risks of. So then you could try to make this gender divide, right? These traditional gender divide that he's trying to enforce on us, and step away from what is actually medically appropriate and medically necessary. But it's all about healthcare politics, not about gender. I mean, of course, there's a whole bunch of shit that's swirling around this. Cultural stuff. Men just don't go to the doctor because that's considered weak. All sorts of weird gender norms that feminists are trying to liberate us from.
Women are going to the OBGYN for the birth of children and for reproductive health.
Men do get breast cancer. Absolutely correct.
Men cannot carry
The point
babies.
is the health needs. The point is the health needs.
Babies. But a 55-year-old man can still develop advanced stage prostate cancer, but he would not have screening available.
I understand, but dude, you understand that the way that they determine these things is not a function of the possibility. It is the function of the likelihood. What you're complaining about is public health
What's
policy.
the difference in the possibility and the likelihood?
No, I'm sorry. Women spend, on average, from ages 19 to 35, $3,400 a year on healthcare. How much do you think men spend?
What's the relevance in how the law's written?
$1,900, because Obamacare is
The
meant to lower the
relevance
cost of
because
healthcare.
It's the basis for how the law is written.
It's the complete basis. What's the difference between possibility and likelihood? Likelihood measures the percentage of chance of you getting it. Possibility simply says any chance above zero.
Right, but if you have a law written based on the likelihood and the possibility, if you have two genders that have an equal...
No, not likelihood and possibility, dude. It is
Thanks,
written
Dino
on the
Doodle.
basis of likelihood.
Okay.
Are you
but the
advocating for
well-woman-
Medicare for all?
The well...
Solves your problem.
What I would like to know is, where is this coming from? Why are you like on this crusade? What is it in your heart that makes it that, like, out of all the crises that we're facing in this country, you really think that there's some men that just are not getting the fair shake? Like, where is this coming from, dude?
First of all, it's not some men, it's virtually all men and boys. And where it comes from is we get...
I would agree with that. Yeah, virtually all men and boys have issues with women. Yes, I would agree with you on that.
You want me to talk or not talk?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on a second. Would you like the floor again? Please take the floor. I've said 4 words.
We get messages from 13, 14, 15-year-old boys who are scared. Things they hear in school, things they hear from their parents, things they hear...
I'll be back, guys. I'm going to go throw up.
You're going to throw up?
No, go ahead. You get messages from 13, 14, 15-year-old boys who are scared. Yes.
And they hear the rhetoric that is being taught in school. They're being taught men are bad, boys are bad, toxic masculinity, and they're being lectured.
Wait.
And they're
Are you telling me that there are schools that say men are bad and boys are bad?
Why toxic masculinity is bad.
Well, toxic masculinity is toxic.
But instead of lecturing them, why not listening to where they're coming from? Instead of lecturing, this is why your masculinity is toxic, why not ask them instead?
Okay, Jesus Christ. This is, okay, chat, we just spotted a debate tactic. We just spotted a conservative rhetorical move. You got to keep an eye out for this type of shit. Which is, toxic masculinity is bad, becomes masculinity is toxic. Oh, well, whoopsie doozy. You just did a little swippy swappy do to change something to something that it's not so you can lie about it. This is what they're doing. This is what conservatives do with transgender rights. This is what conservatives do with critical race theory. This is what conservatives do is they take something that is academic, that is precise language that means a certain thing. They change it around so it sounds similar, and then they assign it some bullshit that it doesn't say as a way of discrediting the first argument without addressing it. Toxic masculinity is bad does not mean masculinity is all toxic. You fucking dipshit. And this is the kind of lying and dissembling that a conservative does, because they understand that being a rhetorical lying piece of shit is how to trick people. And this is something that I say all the time on this stream, but conservatives break down into two camps. Either the outright evil, they know what conservatism really means, and they're out to lie about it so that they can attain power and control. They're privileged. Versus the ignorant masses that are conservatives. They don't know what they believe. Most of what Conservative Project is concealing from conservatives what they actually believe. Everybody understands that toxic masculinity is bad. Well, most people understand that. And if you're like, well, I'm not one of those people, I don't think there's such a thing as toxic masculinity. Well, you know that's wrong. Think about all the times that people get catcalled on the street. Think about the times when men are homeless on the street and nobody cares. Think about all the time, and why don't they care? Because he's not doing what a man is supposed to do, work for a living. That's toxic masculinity. You're mad at feminism for what's actually a symptom of toxic masculinity. That man is not fitting the gender role, therefore he's lesser than. That's not feminism's fault. That's toxic masculinity's fault. That's patriarchy's fault. Men are disposable. That happened well before feminism, dummy. That was patriarchy. Women are held on a pedestal. That's not feminism. That's patriarchy, you stupid fuck. We've got to control women's sexuality. That's not feminism. That's patriarchy. All those things that you're complaining about, it's like capital. People who complain about corporations, woke corporations being communist. Dude, that's capitalism, dummy. You're complaining about capitalism. The strongest advocates for capitalism are the ones who blame all of its deficits on non-existent socialism. That is the conservative trick. You blame these problems with the systems you support, the hierarchies you support, on the few activists fighting against them.
Dude, you're playing games here because nobody's saying masculinity is toxic. There you go, Sam. Are you denying the existence of a masculinity that is problematic?
I'm saying that it's not up for feminists to just define.
I'm not talking about feminism.
And this is why we watch Sam Seder, because Sam Seder is a smart guy. And he immediately identified what I identified, which is, you just did a switcheroo. You just did a debate tactic, motherfucker. Always wrecked. Thank you for this tier 1. And thank you, Veridity NS, for the tier 1 as well. 6 and 8 months.
Anything. Who said feminist? I'm asking you a question. Do you think there's any aspects of masculinity that are toxic?
No, I think there are aspects of the social expectations on men that are toxic and
just the expectations. Nothing that men do, nothing that men have been socialized to do over the years in creating what we know as masculinity is in any way toxic.
Of course, look at the draft. Look at conscription.
Oh my God, dude.
Dude, you're not listening to what I'm saying.
The draft, first of all, okay, listen. I think that conscription of men only is probably a bad idea. Dude, you didn't go to Vietnam. Vietnam ended in 1975. Vietnam ended in 1975. We haven't had an active draft your parents' or grandparents' age. Can you stop? Can you stop? That's not... I had to register for selective service. Did they call you up? LMAO conscription itself is a bad idea, Omega Lol. Yes, of course, conscription is a terrible idea. I would never support conscription, except for a long list of exceptions that everyone agrees with. But whatever. This man's still living in Nam era. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke. My dad, I think, was drafted. It was around the same time that Trump dodged it. Conscription of men only wasn't a feminist thing. That was a masculine decision as well. That's toxic masculinity. That's the belief that only men are competent to fight and women should be held on a pedestal. That's not feminism. That is traditional masculine patriarchy. He's bitching about shit that comes from the patriarchy. This is what happens when your mind is rotted.
That doesn't exist.
What is masculinity
anymore?
One at a time, please.
What is masculinity?
Emma, shut up. In other words, Emma, please stop talking. Please, we need to give the floor back to the man.
I think a lot of things happen where when we have these kind of discussions is that a lot of people that are oppressed or they within these systems, when they're put in these debate situations, they feel the emotional trauma. They remember the time where they felt oppression, they were discriminated against, they were mistreated because of their race, their sex, their gender identity, their sexual orientation. And so they get angry. They don't keep their cool. And if you are a debate bro, a white man, debate bro, living in privilege, everything, life is easy. This stuff is all academic for you. It's easy for you to, when you have no stakes, to keep your cool, right? And this is an optics thing. This is an abuser thing. You needle, you attack, you abuse your victim, and then when they react emotionally, you then go, oh, look how unhinged they are. Look how absurd, look how out of control they are. It's a way of discrediting them. It's a gaslighting tactic. It is, and this is part of the reason why most of your popular debate bros are white dudes. Because when you're debating whether or not abortion should be legal, it's academic for you. It doesn't apply to you. But if you're a woman advocating for abortion who's had an abortion, and the guy on the other side of the panel is calling you a slut, calling you a murderer, you might get a little bit emotional about that. You might get a little bit hurt by that. That is why you often see white dudes doing debate bro shit, because it's all academic. It doesn't apply to them. They don't have those emotional connections to it. And why they always bitch and complain, oh, somebody's yelling. And here's the thing. When these debate bros get in these situations with people of color, with trans people, with women, they will needle them, they will insult them, and they will try to provocate to produce this exact reaction that you're seeing so that they can get the optics win. And once you understand that debates are mostly about optics, not about the content that's being said, not about the arguments, not about the logic, it's about who can perceive better than the other, then you understand why the value of these debate bros is so low.
And who thinks that masculinity is under attack. One at a time.
What is masculinity?
I would say that masculinity is defined as the social conventions that someone would expect of someone who appears to be male.
Expect?
But I don't.
Wait. So you don't have masculinity. I impose it on you. Is that what you're saying?
I did not say that, no.
Well, if you're telling me that the definition of masculinity is what other people expect, you're saying it has nothing to do with you, that you don't have masculinity. I impose it on you. That's my expectation.
Sounds like you're gender fluid.
I didn't say.
No, not me personally, society. You're saying expectations. Does masculinity exist except for in the expectations of other people?
Society as a whole, yes. I didn't say from you.
No, I understand society as a whole. Can masculinity exist without the expectations of others?
Of course masculinity exists. For example, when you look at me, you think masculine paragon. You see those traps, you see the triangle shape of my body, you see the bulging biceps, you see the beard, and you're just like, Mike from PA, masculine man, right? Am I right? The short cropped hair, the jutting chin, you think the deep voice, you're like, God damn, Mike from PA, that's a masculine man. Bulging biceps, look at those, look at how huge I am. He's a force of nature. Stop showing up, dude. They call him Adonis Mike. Adonis from PA. Wow, chat lit the fuck up because that's called dry humor. I did a joke. Okay, I did a joke. So when you're talking about masculinity, You could go, of course masculinity exists. Haven't you seen Mike from PA? Masculine man. How many DGGers are going to clip this and put it in a compilation? Absolute definition of a Chad. Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
I think that if you took 1 million men and 1 million women under the same circumstances,
Maddie Mint,
and you follow them over 10 years, you would see there were certain trends and certain hobbies and certain
Mr. Bongwater, thank you for the tier one.
Men would be more likely to be interested in.
What is it? What?
It doesn't mean that you're defined, and it doesn't mean that you're locked into these roles. It doesn't mean that a woman can't play football and a man can't wear makeup. Those things are totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What it means is that there are some innate differences.
Dude, are you telling me you're a men's rights activist and you can't even define for me what the word masculinity means?
Masculinity is not a scientifically defined term. So no.
The social construct is what you're saying?
It's a social construct, and there's nothing about that social construct that is in any way toxic.
Ask 10 different people, you get 10 different answers. So
yeah, but that's not how this works. If you're going to use this as your basis and your argument, you have to actually provide some sort of evidence. Now, like, you know, I'm really curious because on one hand, you're talking about the economy and how it affects men. But if you're going to go on that, let's talk about how it affects women. Let's just talk about that. Or are you talking about the social construct, which is based on the 10 people that you have in a room who have an opinion?
Nothing on the pay gap, by the way, dude. You're talking about pension funds. Interested what you think about the pay gap for men and women.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to go back to what Sam was saying, how as a man's rights activist...
that doesn't shock me.
As a man's rights activist, I wouldn't want to define masculinity. Secondly, as for the pay gap, men under 40 now earn less than women in the United States. Men are
fundamentally false, dude. Fundamentally false. You know, do you know who the majority of frontline workers were this last year that we all praised frontline workers? They were women of color, mainly women of color. And I don't see you going to bat for the $15 minimum wage. You want to talk about gender equity? You want to talk about men's rights? Then fine, go make sure that women make more money so that you don't have to feel insecure about taking care of the family and the home. If you're so burdened by this.
Well, here's the thing. A men's rights activists, or incels in particular, they wouldn't want women to make as much as men because they would say that women believe in hypergamy and they only would date up. They would only date men who make more than them, and women only care about that. And so if women make more, that means less men are suitable. That's what they would say. So get the fuck out of here, incel. You don't want the gender pay gap to go down. You want the gender pay gap to go up because the only way you're going to get laid in your own mind is if you have somebody that has to financially and economically rely on you. That's what they want. And by the way, they want to put women back into subordinate position. Now, women are not equal to men in our society. We still have a patriarchal society where women face a lot more challenges and oppression than men do. However, that doesn't mean men are walking on sunshine and they don't have any problems, because we live in a capitalist society. This is why intersectionality is important, because it helps you understand that the way people feel oppression is changed by their particular identity. So a white man is going to have a different experience in our society than a black woman. A black woman is going to experience misogynoir, which is a specific type of oppression that black women face, which is going to be different than white women, which is going to be different than Asian men. All these different identities matter. But here's the other thing. A rich black woman is going to experience a different set of problems than a poor black woman. Or a poor white man is going to face different circumstances and situations than a rich white woman. All these things matter. But all these structures exist to support capitalism and the hierarchy of the state in general. These things that is why it's so important to have an analysis that looks deeper than men are being drafted and women aren't. That's why we need men's rights. What are the men being drafted for, dummy? They're being drafted to fight in a capitalist war of aggression. So who's the problem here? Women or the capitalists that are sending you into a meat grinder to protect their oil industry? You are spending all your time on the wrong targets. Capitalism is what is causing your problem, Not women, you stupid fuck.
Then why don't you advocate for pay equity, a higher minimum wage? Let's talk about all the institutional
Chat,
issues.
I have a question for you. This is a pop quiz. We're going to add some analysis here rather than just reacting. What is the single best way to lower the wage gap? If you had one thing you could do for a woman, what would it be to lower the wage gap? We've got ourselves. What are the guesses we've got? Pay men less? No, that's not right. Childcare? Good guess. Education? Capitalism? That ain't it. Avatar Moonlily, I believe, is the first person to say the correct answer. Put her in a goddamn union. Put her in a goddamn union. April 4th is Equal Pay Day, the day that marks when a typical woman's earnings can catch up to what a man earned in the previous year. The gender wage gap is a measure of pay disparity between men and women. The research is conclusive. Gender wage gaps exist across the wage distribution and among workers of every education level. The median woman worker, that worker in the exact middle of the distribution of women's wages, is paid 83 cents for every dollar that the median man is paid. Among workers with a college degree or advanced degree, the gap is even larger, with women being paid only 73 cents on the male dollar. So actually, education makes it worse. For the vast majority of women, true economic security and a fair share of the economy's growth will require combining progress in closing the gender-based pay disparities with progress in linking their wage growth to economy-wide productivity growth. As shown in the figure below, working women in union are paid 94 cents on average for every dollar paid to unionized working men, compared with 78 cents on the dollar for non-union women as a share of the non-union man's dollar. Furthermore, hourly wages for women represented by unions are 23% higher than for non-unionized women. Unions provide a boost to women regardless of their race or ethnicity. The gender wage gap is significantly smaller among both white and black unionized workers than their non-union counterparts. Unionized workers are also more likely to have access to various kinds of paid leave, from paid sick days, vacations, holidays, to paid family and medical leave, enabling them to balance work and family obligations. So, now do you see why everything goes back to class? And the single best way to attack these disparities and oppressions is solidarity with a class-based movement. Now, I'm not saying we forget these gender pay gap or racial pay gap, but the solution is power for the worker, because the worker is people of color, is women. And capitalism is the key that is creating these divisions and these oppressions. Union labor is the way. Why? And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. The union negotiates on behalf of all the workers. You have a job, you're in the union, you have that contract. It doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, black, white, you get the same contract. And by the way, that contract is better than what you would get if you were on your own. Even if you're a white man, the supposed person with the most privilege, a non-union white man makes less than a union white man. That's why solidarity, I don't care if you're a white dude or a black woman, being in a union helps you. Now, it helps black women disproportionately more than it helps a white man because they're oppressed more. But solidarity equals benefit for all. So even if you're just an egoist, if you just care about yourself, you're 100% selfish son of a bitch, white man, piece of shit. You only care about yourself. You should still support unions. You should still support solidarity. That is the reality. That's why I believe we have to have an intersectional but class-based class-based movement. Because the single best way to solve these issues is through the union movement. And we know this for a fact. This is not just bullshit. This is empirical fact. This is not just my fantasy as a leftist hoping for a utopia. This is reality. We know this to be true. And what countries have the lowest pay gap? Countries with lowest gender pay gap. Guess what countries they are? Guess what country they are? Are you ready? All right, hold on. Let me find an actual list that's not garbage. Oh, God. Okay, hold on. Fuck's sake. Are you ready? Iceland, Norway, Finland, Sweden. Now, chat. 91% of people in Finland are protected by collective bargaining. 74% of people are in unions. You want to know why the Scandinavian countries don't have a gender pay gap nearly as bad as ours? Because everybody's in a goddamn union. We cracked the code. Class-based sectoral bargaining doesn't solve it completely, but makes it minuscule compared to what it is in our shithole ununionized country. So that's why I talk about that as a model. That's why I talk about these issues with why I focus on DSA, why I focus on union organizing, because that is actually I care about the gender pay gap. I care about feminism. But the numbers are the numbers. The facts are the facts. Now, does that mean that there's no sexism or misogyny in the Scandinavian countries? No, it doesn't mean that. But it is a solution that we know. So if you know somebody who opposes unions, they can't call themselves a feminist. They can't call themselves someone who is actually fighting for liberation. So all those libs, guess what? In Scandinavia, men have the same number of childcare days, aka feminism allowed both genders to take time off with their kids. Exactly.
That will make you feel more empowered as a man. So you have a little extra money to go out there and spend on whatever you do in your men's rights movement. You want equity? Fine. Let's do it. Sounds great.
Who said I don't?
All right. So wait a second. So okay. So let's just be clear. Let me just catch up where we are here. There's no way to define masculinity. So any talk of toxic masculinity, of course, is absurd because we don't even know what masculinity is. But toxic.
Wait, does the men's rights activist, did he fail to define masculinity at all? It's just traits and behaviors traditionally associated with men. Now, if you're talking about the more toxic elements, it's associated with having power, like in your house and in society. So, like, just as an example, a toxic masculine man would say, you let your woman work outside the home. You're not providing for you're supposed to be the breadwinner. You're not providing for your wife. She has to go and work for you, you pathetic, weak man. I can care for my wife. That's why she's a homemaker. That would be an example of toxic masculinity. He said it was expectations. Okay. There you go. I just gave you an expectation.
Yeah. And so there can't be toxic masculinity because we don't even know what masculinity is. And that's impossible to define.
But that's not what I said. I said there is a general sense of masculinity based on the...
Tell me what it is. You keep talking around it. Don't tell me there's a general sense. I'm asking you what it is, and you can't articulate it. So how is there a general sense?
Because there's no specific definition. As you said, there is no specific...
Well, here, let me tell you what toxic masculinity involves. It involves things that end up leading to domestic abuse. Yes, it's not funny when men get hit, but the fact of the matter is the overwhelming amount of domestic abuse in this country is men on women, right?
All right, so just to define toxic masculinity that makes sense, it's the behaviors of like domination, of abuse, of beating someone in a competition. So here's an example of a toxic masculine behavior. Toxic masculinity would be to like make a video and you would go, look how cringe this guy is. He's not dominating that woman. Look how cringe he is with that woman. He's not being a Lothario with that woman. Look, he's a weak man. That would be a toxic masculine behavior because you're insulting and putting someone down because they didn't dominate that person. Or if somebody so this is why the debate bros are so toxic and they have shit communities, because that's what they do, is they try to play off of those toxic masculine traits. I own the person, I dominated the person, I humiliated the person. It's domination, it's hierarchy, right? That's toxic masculinity. When you are saying that that's the way men ought to behave, in a competitive way to dominate others. And it's not just like stuff that leads to domestic abuse. Well, that would be an example of toxic masculinity. Why? Because the man feels like the woman is not under his control, right? He thinks, I'm a masculine man, I'm the man in the relationship, and the woman is acting out of my will. So in order to put her back under my control, I'm willing to use physical, mental, economic, whatever abuse to put her in her place, which is under my control. So the toxic masculinity is the domination of the woman in a relationship by a man because he feels like that's his proper role. And he's willing to use violence or threats or coercion to put her back in the dominated, submissive position. That is toxic masculinity. So when people talk about toxic masculinity, those are the type of behaviors they're talking about.
That is very much debatable.
Well, okay, debate it.
Oh boy.
There are statistics that show very, very, very wildly different rates of domestic violence, where some studies...
So are you telling me, sir, who is calling in...
That's an abuser problem, not a man problem. 99% of men don't do that. Okay, first of all, I regret to inform you that it's definitely not 99% of men don't do that. Much lower than that, which is okay. You don't know that data, which is fine. However, I didn't say all men do bad behavior. I just described toxic masculinity. I described the masculine, and machismo says that men should be in the dominant position and women should be subservient in a relationship. I think we all agree with that, right? Like, traditional masculinity is man in charge, woman subservient. Does anyone disagree with that approach of traditional masculinity? Is that not correct? Does anyone disagree with me? So, toxic masculinity is using violence, coercion, threats, etc. to enforce that domination in line with traditional masculinity on women. Traditional gender roles on women. Toxic masculinity would use that. That's why it's toxic. That's why it's a problem. Anyone throwing out the not all men just needs to say too many men out loud 5 times. Now, I'm not saying that women are not abusers. Women abuse too. But you're distracting yourself from the point that we're talking about, which is, what is toxic masculinity? What are the problems within our society? Some women are paid more than men in the same job. Some women are in social circumstances where they're getting paid more than a man in the same job. With the same productivity. Holding all things equal, there are some women being paid more than some men in some jobs right now. But in society-wide, the reverse is much more common. That is, men being paid more than a woman in the same job with the same productivity. So societally, we say the problem is the gender pay gap and that women are paid less. It doesn't mean that all women are paid less. It doesn't mean that all men are paid more. It doesn't even mean that no men are paid unfairly. But when you look at problems from a social perspective, from a societal perspective, you can draw these you can make these general claims about the position of men and women relatively in society. And if you push back on that, you've got what I've called liberalism brain. You've got capitalist brain, because capitalists and liberals don't want you to think collectively. They don't want you to think systemically. They want you to think interpersonally. They want you to think that's because that business was unfair to that woman in particular. Because if you think individually and interpersonally, you won't solve the problem, and you won't challenge capitalism, and you won't challenge liberalism, and you won't challenge conservatism. I'll throw that in there just so everyone's not confused that I'm not just hating Democrats or something. I'm talking about the philosophical, or rather the political ideas surrounding liberalism, okay? We live in a liberal world right now. Mike, I know we try to educate, but please don't engage with not all men guy, SMH. I'm trying to help people understand. Listen, a lot of leftists are bad at arguing and making points. A lot of people have good values, but they don't present them well, and they don't argue them well, and they don't exchange substantively with the status quo in an effective way. My job is to make the arguments so that in the future, when you get in these situations and you get all mad because the other person's fucking piece of shit, you could step back and think, okay, I've heard Mike talk about this before, and you can bring up the points that I bring, and you can advance the argument in your own circumstances and your own friends, your own family. You can make coherent arguments. You can change minds. I would love to ignore all these people all the time too, but unfortunately they're dominant in society, so we've got to push back. I have a mixed emotions about debate, because if debates were about ideas, I am very happy to do more debates about ideas. But the problem is, most debates are not about ideas. Most debates are, it's like politics. Politicians don't go up there and debate ideas in a substantive way. It's all posturing for optics, throwing out buzzwords, throwing out trigger words for your base to try to get your side riled up and the other side riled up. That's not what so when we debate, we're not actually going like, okay, let's talk about liberalism, let's talk about reformism, let's talk about socialism, let's talk about history. No, that's not what we're really doing. What we're really doing is, you're cringe, bro. I can talk louder than you. I have a larger community than you. And I could debate with smaller conservatives all the time. This is what a lot of these scumbag debate guys do, is debate with conservative. They get some 2-viewer Andy to come on their stream, and they just beat the shit out of them and going, I own conservative, soy face. To me, that's, I mean, I guess I could do that, but that bores me. It bores me. So what's important to me is me not being bored. People wouldn't have to argue about women's rights versus men's rights versus whoever's rights if the structures of society were set up to benefit all people. True. Debates show who could have the most clout in an argument over nothing. Yeah. Have you brought up the family court for men's rights stuff? It's the only take I think I understand from them. We'll keep going.
Domestic violence rates don't tell me there's a debate to be had. Answer it. I don't want to answer it. Answer the question. Do men beat women more than women beat men? You tell me, men's right advocate.
I would say that, first of all, the studies are inconclusive, and secondly,
we don't know.
Because
we can't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
Okay, so we
I want addendum.
We don't know what the rates of domestic abuse are
because they're a minority.
Hang on a second, though. What I would like to know.
That doesn't mean,
based on your presumption that men and women, we don't know what the actual numbers are. One thing we do have really good sense of the numbers are is how many women end up unhoused because or stuck in domestic abuse situations because of the pay equity issue, in which they cannot leave their home with their partner in a domestic abuse situation because their partner is part of they have to take care of their children, their home, and if you separate from a domestic abuse situation, you're put in an unhoused, possibly even more vulnerable situation. We do know the numbers on that, and they're majority women.
First of all, do you think it's possible that because male victims are taken less seriously and they don't get as much help and they don't have a shelter to go to, that the number of unhoused men is lower
No, I don't actually, because there's a pay equity issue in which men make more money than women.
That's not true.
Okay, so let's just be here. I just want to sum it up, because obviously there's nothing seems to be knowable here. We don't know what domestic rates of violence are. We don't know what the word masculinity means. We also we don't know what the pay disparities are. All we know is that 13, 14, 15-year-old boys are writing into you saying that people are telling them men are bad and boys are bad.
That's not what I said, Sam. That is not being honest at all, and you know it. And we do know, by the way, we do know the pay gap statistics. When you control for all factors such as working overtime, men and women earn almost identical salaries in the United States. Now, if you take the median male salary...
But why would you control for working overtime?
Why wouldn't you?
Because you're talking about the opportunity to make money.
But women have the same opportunity to work overtime.
No, they don't, because they have kids.
Men have kids, too.
Are you telling me that we can't know who has primary responsibility in our society as it exists now for taking care of the kids?
Well, of course, it's true that women are given custody more than men, but if you have a couple, they can absolutely decide, hey, listen, I'm going to work more tonight. You work more tomorrow night. That's a choice they can make.
Now, do you think it's a rational decision do you think it's possible that society rewards men more than women, so that if you're economically strapped, there might be more opportunity for men to make money than women?
No.
You don't think that exists?
Oh, interesting.
No, I don't.
I mean, look, listen, you're living in a different universe. You're honestly living in a different universe. Then let me tell you why.
Right now,
so many people respond to you. Listen to me. Listen to me for a second. Let me suggest something to you. Let me suggest something to you, because we're going to have to end this at the moment. But I would love you to call back in. Has it occurred to you that the reason why when you portray yourself and when you go out and you go on CNN or whatever it is that you had mentioned in your preface, that people respond to you like I do, like you're a lunatic, that the reason why they're doing that is because everything you're saying, not everything, but the vast majority of what you're saying completely does not comport with their sense of reality. So we've got that type of situation where, like, you have one sense of reality and everybody else around you, not everybody, but the vast majority of people around you have another sense of reality. And
a lot of people like you have a misunderstanding
of things like the dynamic that exists in the workforce, or the dynamic that exists with domestic abuse, or just the concept of, like, hey, people didn't have the right to vote, up until fairly recently in our society, or didn't have the right to have their own credit card, or couldn't even have the right to have their own name. I lived in a city when I was 21. In my city, in the second biggest city in New England, women were not allowed to register to vote under their maiden name.
But that doesn't invalidate the men's rights issues.
No, what it suggests to me is, listen, you can find subsets of all sorts of people who don't have, in certain specific areas, the same. I mean, I'm not quite convinced that men don't have the same rights, but the don't have equity. But I can tell you that across society, when you look at, I'm not interrupting you because I haven't stopped talking. When you look across society, the net relationship in terms of rights in society and be able to move to society with some form of equity, I'm sure if you try, you can find some narrow instances. And I have no doubt that we have not done a good job of trying to change the expectations of what we expect out of men. That has to happen. There's no...
Yeah, work harder, be smarter, because guess what? We're not handing it to you on a platter anymore. If you're the...
Of rights.
It's not what I said.
It's not a question of rights.
It's not about being handed on a platter.
It's not a question of rights.
Grades for the same work.
All right, so this is where liberalism comes into optical problems here, which is right now in society, working class people and middle class is being hollowed out. Especially for the millennial generation. If your perception is it's hard to work and get ahead and own your own home and generate wealth, you're right. So men and women are falling out of the middle class and the working class. And for a lot of men, that makes them ripe for right-wing agitation and right-wing fascist and reactionary arguments. The right-wingers are saying it's because the feminists are doing it. The feminists are ruining you can't earn enough to support your family. It's the feminists' fault. Now, if you are a leftist, I want you to not, if you're trying to argue against fascism, it's probably not a good argument to say, men, you're not being handed life on a platter anymore. Get used to it. You know, you're getting your comeuppance, girl power. That is not actually what's happening. Women are not advancing themselves either, because capitalism is just absorbing all the productivity gains and increasing the prices of things that are the pillars of life. Housing prices going up, education's going up, healthcare is going up, childcare is going up. Women are not advancing tremendously as well. It's just so happened that we now, to have a stable middle class life, you need to have two incomes. You need to have both parents working now. We are regressing. Millennials are not building wealth. That is not because of feminism. The reason is because of neoliberal capitalism. Destroying what? What are they destroying? Unions. So when men perceive that their position is worse off than it was 30 years ago, they're absolutely right. If you allow people to argue that it was because of feminism, you're doing the fascist work. It's not that. That's why we have the countries that have the best gender pay gap just so happen to have the strongest unions. The countries with the strongest middle class, the countries with the lowest poverty are the countries with the highest people in fucking unions. Because they're best able to resist neoliberal capitalism, because they have power in the hands of the worker. And what happens in Sweden and Finland and Denmark? There's free childcare. There's parental leave, both paternity and maternity. You have a baby in Sweden, the dad takes time off too. The dad takes 6 months off to help raise the kid. They actually have a society where, now, is it perfect? No, but I'm pointing to what is worse, America, versus what is better. And they're not good enough, and they've lost some ground too, because neoliberalism is a global movement that has infected every part of the world. But if you point to feminism as the reason your wages are going down, you're stupid. It's neoliberal capitalism destroying the economic power of the working class and the middle class. So it's not wrong for men or anyone to raise their hand and saying, hey, I can't get ahead. Hey, my job is not paying enough. They're fucking right. But it ain't because of feminism, brah. It ain't because of the cultural libs, brah. It's because of capitalism. I wonder how the men on the right would feel if they knew South Korean men buy more cosmetics than women. All right, that's actually Pog. All right, let's get back.
Every age and every subject, just so you know.
Could it possibly be? I have a theory about people like you, and I don't worry about offending you because you just spent the last 20 minutes basically offending everything that both Em and I have been talking about for the last, I don't know. Hang on a second. I know. I have a theory about you.
You're not the kind of person that would offend me because your opinion of me is not a reflection of myself.
And that is, I'm so happy you have that self-confidence. I'm so happy that you just walk through the world thinking that your opinion matters more than everybody else's. But guess what? It seems like you're a little insecure about, I don't know, maybe you have to put in a few more hours and do a little extra work because now immigrants and people of color and women are suddenly outpacing you. There's 10 seats at the table, and I'm sorry, you were the 10th, and now you feel insecure because you don't just get that spot.
I never said that.
Statement, do you have a sense of that?
Nakomi, is that what I said?
No, that's not my name. I'm sorry. Can you try that again?
Well, wait, that's,
your name is what? I'm
that's
looking
fair.
at your chat right now. What is your name? Is this
Okay.
He can't see.
No, it's not.
It's okay. It's okay. He's calling into the show because he's a regular viewer. So I'm curious if he was going to do the extra work that people do when they call into shows when they want to debate somebody. Did you do the work? Or you just want it handed to you?
Conversation.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Men, teenage boys and men.
Listen, as a professional feminist, I'm gonna give you a little advice now. If you're gonna call into a show and debate men's rights, maybe come a little bit prepared. Maybe the issue is that you've just been able to skirt through life just saying like, some people say, and this is my theory. Come in with the facts next time. We'll be ready for you. But in the meantime, I know you're insecure about not being able to just walk into life and get what you want and actually have to do the work now.
And you wouldn't listen.
All right, so Thomas, listen.
And deflect and change the point. Sam, can I talk to you one-on-one?
Yes, at another time.
Okay. I would like to arrange.
Tapped out, throw in the towel. Oh, come on, dude. You got out debate lorded by her. Oh, no. Okay, I take back every critique I made on Nomiki. She's perfect. Never change.
Not now.
I would like to arrange.
Can I have a one-on-one men's rights conversation with you, Sam? Man.
Hash this out. Mano y mano.
Mano y mano.
Like or, you know, it's fine. Emma can come too.
Oh, thank you.
Emma, as long as you're quiet, you can come.
It's because I'm cool and I drink beer.
With timed responses.
With timed responses.
You have 90 seconds, and I had 90.
Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas. Why don't you have me on your show?
You want to come on my channel?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Send me an email, majorityreporters@gmail.com.
Why doesn't he want to debate a woman? I'm really curious. I'm just really curious about this whole scenario here. Why don't you want to debate a woman one-on-one?
We gotta let him go.
Yeah, I gotta let you go.
I would absolutely.
He's dead already.
Oh, he'll do it.
He's dead already.
Emma can come, but correct me if I'm wrong. Sam is the name of the channel. It's called The Majority Report with Sam Seder. Is that true or false?
Sam Seder, yes.
The Majority Report refers to everybody on the show. It's Sam Seder's show because he's the big star. The big star. Okay? He's the star. Well, why is he a star, Mike? Well, let me explain to you, all you youngins. Sam Seder is a star because he appeared on a show, a smash hit show called Sex and the City. Sam Seder was on the smash hit show Sex and the City. All right? So that's why he is the star.
So on today's episode of Sam Could Have Been Somebody, this is actually something that I still get stopped in bars over these next...
Okay, chat, this was 12 years ago, so I'm guessing the Sex and the City stopped in bars thing is probably stopped.
Clips. And it's always by women, because...
Oh, can we get some DSA mods and some Haas mods in the chat? Oh my god, he can't keep getting away with it. Okay, dude.
I actually played Letterman Lou on season 3, episode 44 of Sex and the City, Sex in Another City. Yes, it was shot in L.A. I was actually living in New York at the time and coincidentally happened to be out in L.A. So here it is. Of course, we have some of my office mates are pretty excited about this. Right, ladies?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's hit play.
Lou asked Miranda to meet him at the Flowing Tree. Surrounded by all these tan, fit, happy people, she knew she would recognize pale, chubby, unhappy Lou immediately.
Miranda?
Oh, my God!
Do I look that different?
Well, let's just say it's a good thing you still wear that hat.
Oh, please. If you ever see me in a Lakers hat.
I know. Shoot you.
Exactly.
You look amazing.
Thanks. Want to grab a drink?
Oh, please. Yes, let's go. The sight of all these bleached teeth is blinding.
No, I mean, grab something here. This place is known for its green tea infusions.
Please, infusions? Could LA be any worse? Take off that hat. I'm going to shoot you right now.
Actually, I really like it here.
Hang on. What happened to the guy I used to share beers with and make fun of happy people?
I know. The thing is, I think I'm one of those happy people now.
He's Soy Cedar. Okay, by the way, chat, this is called acting. All right, this is called acting because I can tell you right now, Sam Cedar is an unhappy, grumpy New Yorker to his core. All right? He is not a soy boy. He is not drinking green tea infusions. He is grumpy. He is miserable. He is mad. The dirt of New York City is under his fingernails, all right? So look at this guy. He's acting.
Wow. I mean, good for you.
I know it sounds crazy, but I think I was just supremely unhappy in New York. I mean, I came out here and I let a lot of that old toxic anger go. I take things slowly, get outside. Ellie agrees with me.
Miranda realized she was the one standing out in that room. She was the only angry New Yorker for miles.
Hey, let's go for a hike.
That's definitely not true. That's definitely not true. The New York to LA pipeline funds multiple multinational airlines, okay? The people that are flying between LA and New York, it's an iron corridor in the sky, all right? Trust me, he's not the only angry New Yorker for miles.
See that? The ladies love Sex in the City. And wait to... Colin, what are you doing?
I'm a fan.
All right. Well, and now is the actually this is this next scene.
All right.
I guess.
Let's finish the scene. Let's finish the first video, then we'll come back.
Right.
He did his research.
Thomas, send me an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. We're going to have some fun, buddy.
I already have.
Oh, well, very good.
As a Colin, I feel personally attacked. Why?
I'll give you the special men's rate too when I come on. We'll talk to you later.
But Sam.
Yeah.
God.
It was good. Sorry, folks. I want to issue an apology.
End of the 30-minute conversation with a fedora.
Yep. I want to issue an apology to Emma and to Nomi and to our entire audience.
No, don't you mean no
I'm the last person who's going to be able to sort of judge somebody for being able to pronounce.
It's okay. It's our thing, Sam. It's not like.
All right. Should we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Let's keep talking about this. I'd love to.
Wow, I mean, that was like a whole hour of the front half on Jimmy Dore and then men's rights.
I know. I apologize, folks. I'm so sorry.
Oh, man.
What a day.
I am so sorry.
We do politics here every morning starting at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can watch us here on Twitch. We're the morning guy, the morning politics guy, Politics Frogs, in every single day, same time, 10 a.m., day in, day out, and we carry you through your morning and early afternoon politics needs. And if you need more, Mike from PA, we have a YouTube channel. We talked about suburbs, the My Pillow guy, Ted Cruz. We talked about DSA. Amazing. Making fun of Tim Pool. Amazing. Look at all of these amazing videos. Get in there, watch them. We have me on Twitter. You got to follow me on Twitter, chat. I'm at 20,614 subs. That means I got like 40 followers on Twitter in the last day. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Go follow us on Twitter. And of course, join the Discord, where we have an incredible community of left-wing streamers. We have left-wing community. We talk about the stream. We talk about politics. There's gaming content. It's a really awesome, supportive place. Direct action, mutual aid, and you can just let off some steam. And also, you can help produce the show. One of the things I do is I look at the links that are put into the news content suggestions chat room on the Discord. Join the Discord, come hang out, and maybe what you want me to talk about will be part of the next show.